Welcome to another episode of Purpose Today. I am your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I'm very excited today that we're continuing in our new series for organizational leaders. We're talking about leading purposefully, and we're going to continue the 90-day executive moves for immediate impact. And so we started on last week and we unpacked the first 6 areas and strategies for senior leaders. And we're going to continue that discussion today. And today we're going to pick up talking about how it's important for senior leaders to establish a cadence for communications. And so as a senior leader, it is important to ensure that you're releasing vital information to other leaders in your organization, to all of the staff throughout the organization of what is emerging, the successes. And it's also important that you have a mechanism for leaders within your organization. Again, every person has a leader on the inside of them, for them to also share information, for them to share communications, and for the communication to flow in both directions. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to continue this power-packed episode for senior leaders and executives who start their first 90 days within an organization. And we will be back after this sponsor message. Today's episode of Purpose Today is brought to you by Purpose Today Global in partnership with the Purpose Professionals community. If you are a professional who desires to network with like-minded, purposeful professionals, then this community is for you. The Purpose Professionals community is designed to support professionals and entrepreneurs who are intentional about aligning with their purpose in their profession. This community will help you to grow in your career. It will help you to purposefully align your business. It'll also help you to pivot to pursue your purpose and continue to develop. If you're interested in more information on the Purpose Professionals community, visit school and search for Purpose Professionals or scan the QR code. Welcome back to Purpose Today. I'm so excited as we continue talking about strategies that executives and senior leaders can employ in their new roles. And we're going to pick up where we left off last week. So as a reminder for those of you who were here last week, you want to ensure that you're clarifying expectations with key stakeholders and investing in key relationships outside the organization. You want to also ensure that you're working to craft and communicate your leadership narrative, to share your values, your priorities, and that's going to help you to build trust. You want to also ensure that you're conducting intentional, purposeful listening tours, that you're mapping out the power dynamics and informal networks, that you're assessing the leadership team's strengths and gaps, that you're establishing quick wins with visible impact, and you're also aligning on strategic priorities and metrics. So let's get right into our 8th strategy that you can employ as a senior leader or executive within an organization. And that next method that you want to use once you've been using the other 7 that we have mentioned is you want to, again, set a cadence for communications. And that is key because you want to ensure that within your organization, you are being transparent as a leader, that you're sharing communications that are vital to everyone in the organization. You're sharing your successes, you're sharing any emerging changes, you're sharing the status of where the organization is as it relates to priorities and anything else that is critical. And again, it's good to be transparent and open. You establish trust through that communication. And you want to also ensure that there are clear, open methods for communications to flow both ways within your organization. And you want to also ensure that there are various methods for communication. So you want to really ensure that your organization has communications that are released on a regular basis. So perhaps your organization has a newsletter. Maybe you have other electronic communications that are going out. It's also great to have town halls and all hands meetings. We talked a little bit about that last week on having town halls and all hands. And so it's important for senior leaders and executives to create an environment and cultivate an environment for open communication. So you want a cadence there. There may also be the need to send communications via company email. And, there's so many different options that you have, but you want to ensure that you're utilizing methods that are working for everyone within the organization. So it's so important that you're setting that cadence. And you want to also ensure that you are providing those regular executive updates on a regular basis. You want to be sure that, again, you're transparent. You want to be sure that you're consistent, because that's going to really help not only to ensure that there's trust and that there's a culture of openness, but you're also going to have synergistic effects throughout the organization. It's going to encourage individuals within the organization to collaborate more. And so that is important, that you have that cadence, and that you're also receiving feedback. You may even have surveys that are disseminated to members within the organization so that you can assess the climate. All of these things are very key for success. And again, these keys help for the organization to be successful, and it helps as a leader for you to be successful in your new role. Now, the next one that we're going to talk about is ensuring that you are doing what's necessary to champion a culture of safety within the organization, including psychological safety. You want to ensure that you are working to create an environment that has a positive impact on the overall culture of the organization. And so what is key in doing this is ensuring that you are cultivating the environment of inclusivity and diversity. It's important that you don't have groupthink. And I think a leader has such a responsibility of ensuring that as you are hiring personnel, and as leaders who you lead hire personnel, and as you continue to grow, that you are hiring people with diverse backgrounds, you're hiring people with diverse experiences, people with diversity of thought. So it's important to look at diversity and inclusivity on, from different perspectives. So you want to make sure, again, that you're modeling inclusive behaviors. You want to ensure that you are creating and cultivating safe spaces for feedback. And you want to make sure that you're even creating the environment that if people have constructive feedback, or they have things that they don't agree with, that they have the environment that's created for them to be able to share that. And it's really important that as a senior leader that you're laying the foundation for that, because you're setting the tone, and you want to ensure that it's apparent that you value input from everyone within the organization, and that every voice is valued. And this is very important when you are assuming a new role. And so I believe it's important to champion that culture, to champion psychological safety, and, have a mechanism that leaders within the organization can also introduce new ideas. So when you have you've allowed individuals to be innovative, you're incorporating ideas, then it speaks volumes. Many times, individuals in the organization will know by your actions and not, just by what you say. So you want to make sure that you are cultivating the culture that is inclusive and that allows people of diverse backgrounds, of diverse experiences, diverse education to make a contribution within the organization. Now, we're going to talk about the next area that I believe is important for executives and senior leaders to do in the first 90 days. And that's ensuring that you can guide or direct an audit. And you want to ensure that any core programs and processes are audited. You want to have an audit of, resource allocations. And while you may not be personally doing these audits, you can direct staff to conduct those audits and report out on the findings and show the reports. But it's very important that core processes and resource allocations are audited, just to ensure that you have the appropriate resources allocated to what is needed. This is very important. So you want to appoint work groups that have subject matter experts, and those subject matter experts should be identifying any bottlenecks. They should be identifying any inefficiencies, and it's important to engage with your team, engage with leaders, engage with managers, employees, and give them an opportunity to share any recommendations for improvement and for reducing any of the identified deficiencies or inefficiencies. And you want to also ensure that the resource deployment processes and any decision-making workflows, that those are efficient as well. And you also should be looking forward to see any adjustments for the budget for the organization. So that's key. Now, we have two more to talk about today. And I want to, before we get into the next two, I want to just take a moment, because I actually had some wonderful engagement last week, and I appreciate all of you who are already engaging, but I had some wonderful engagement last week, and I thought that it might be a good idea to just share some of the questions that you all asked last week, and some of the things that you all, provided just on not just YouTube, but also some of the feedback that you all provided on LinkedIn. And so one of the things that I saw, and certainly I appreciate all of the feedback that you all gave. So I want to thank you all again, and say that I do appreciate all of you who either commented or asked questions via YouTube or via LinkedIn. So do want to make sure that I take the time to acknowledge all of you, because it is such a joy to know that the information that I shared and what we've talked about has been beneficial. So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate all of your feedback. So thank you all for engaging. It's greatly appreciated. So I did have several individuals who commented, and again, I appreciate all of you. But one of the comments that stood out to me, just in looking at some of your feedback, is I had Loris to indicate that the concept of intentional leadership during those first 90 days really resonated with him. And so thank you so much for that, Loris. And Loris was curious as to which of the 7 moves I find that leaders struggle with the most. From Loris's experience, building credibility early on is crucial, and it is. And so, Loris, I know you asked to hear my perspective, and I did respond on LinkedIn. But one of the things that I have just seen is that the strategy, the 3rd strategy and the 7th strategy, were the strategies that are often opportunities that are missed. And I think many senior leaders in the first 90 days often want to institute changes. And I don't think there's anything wrong with instituting changes. I think when you can incorporate a new way of doing things, when you can incorporate different approaches, it often allows the organization to be successful, and it often allows growth. What I see as an opportunity is that leaders give the time and the attention to other leaders within the organization to share their observations, to share their input. I know we talked earlier about having those intentional, purposeful listening tours. And I think in the course of asking questions, in the course of hearing what other leaders within the organization have to say about what they have seen and observed and lessons learned, it can help to ensure that you are instituting changes where they're needed. And you can also receive feedback on maybe what hasn't worked, why it didn't work. But also, when you ensure that you're listening and that you're meeting with leaders within the organization, you're giving them the opportunity to know that they're valued, because you're asking those questions before you effectuate any changes or direct any changes. So I think that that's very important. If you come in making the changes before you've been intentional and purposeful about listening and receiving that feedback, then you can have some counterproductivity, right? It can go against what you're hoping to achieve if you're instituting changes that you have not received insight. Because a lot of times you have subject matter experts and leaders within the organization, they're doing the work, they see the operational side. And so giving them an opportunity to share their insight, to weigh in, to share their observations, it's helpful. It's helpful to everyone within the organization. And doing this is going to allow you to have the buy-in that you need. It's going to allow you to be able to oversee implementation and do so knowing that you have the backing of those within the organization who are doing the work, those who are leading implementation, those who are writing policy on changes, those who are writing the standard operating procedures for the processes. So I believe that that's very important. So thank you to everyone on all of the questions that you asked last week, and even the ones that you all have been asking on today. So I do want to cover one other thing because sometimes we can have extra tools that will be beneficial. So I did have someone to ask the question about balancing both achieving, desired mission outcomes, and also keeping, the balance of allowing people to be purpose aligned. That's been a question that has been asked. And I think as a leader, we are in positions to ensure that people are empowered to achieve their goals, to achieve what they're dreaming about. And when you allow people to be in positions that they doing things that they love and aligning with their purpose, then you have better engagement, you have more collaboration, you have more innovation, you have better performance. There's so many different benefits to doing that. So it's important to evaluate the mission, what are the needs of the organization, and then also looking at what are the interests, the professional interest of, leaders who you lead, right? So everyone has a leader on the inside of them. So it's asking the questions, the right questions to find out, what their interests are, what they love doing, and identifying opportunities that they can lead at another level, be developed in another way while still achieving the mission of the organization. So I'm going to try to answer all of the questions, but if I don't have an opportunity to answer all of the questions, then certainly I will try to get back to the comments and the chats to answer those. So the next strategy that you can use in your first 90 days for success is just taking the time to strengthen personal resilience and time management. Going into a new position is exciting, right? If you were promoted into a new executive role within your same organization, or if you, went to a new organization to take on a new senior leader or executive role, there are definitely, there's a learning curve. There's an opportunity for you to have an opportunity to learn the leaders within the organization, for them to learn you, to learn your leadership style. And it's important to ensure that you give yourself the opportunity to continue to identify what resilience looks like in that new role. Of course, you may have been in your prior role for an extended period, and you are resilient in so many ways, but discovering what resilience looks like in your new role, even discovering how you can help to foster resilience within other leaders in the organization, what you can do to help to strengthen the resilience of the organization and the professionals within the organization. That is key. And you want to also look at and examine what changes you need to make regarding your time management. as you are learning to adjust with the new role, it's important to be intentional. Sometimes going into a new role comes with its challenges, but it's very important for you to take the time to have routines that you are continuing to exercise, self-care, that you're continuing to reflect on a regular basis, and that you're also continuing to learn on an ongoing basis, and that you're mentoring and you're continuing to receive mentorship, because that's going to help you with your overall well-being. That's going to help you with your effectiveness in the role. And I think it's important to identify one or two additional new mentors, and that's going to continue to help you with being intentional as you are progressing well and having success for your organization, or helping your organization to be successful, and to help you to successfully transition into the new role. One of the things that some executives and senior leaders struggle with is they struggle with, I'm just going to say it, sometimes they struggle with working longer hours than what they would desire. They find themselves in a new role working 14, 16-hour days, and you want to ensure that you have balance. You want to ensure that you are being effective and efficient, and you want to ensure that you're finding the opportunities to delegate. You're finding the opportunities to empower leaders to lead, and so it's important to keep that balance. Now we've talked about 11 of these, and I'm going to talk about the 12th one. And I want to also iterate because someone asked this question last week. And even if you're not in a new executive role, or you're not in a new senior leader role, you can find ways to incorporate these strategies wherever you are. So the 12th one is solicit ongoing feedback and iterate. So it's so important that you have feedback on an ongoing basis. That feedback should be continuous, because it's going to help the organization to be successful. So you do want to create those approaches to receive continuous feedback from individuals who are senior to you, and leaders who you have the pleasure of having as a direct report. When you create those mechanisms for continuous feedback from both your leadership and the leaders who you're honored to lead, it's going to ensure that you keep the lines of communication open. It's going to ensure the success of the organization, the success of everyone, in it. And you want to make sure that as you're receiving feedback, that you're applying that feedback, you're learning from it, and you're identifying ways to incorporate it and enhance, what you're doing. And I believe it's important to also, give feedback on a continuous basis as well, because it helps with development and with growth. So I believe it's so important that we use, ongoing feedback to really help to improve. It helps to improve from a standpoint of our leadership style and skills. It helps us to improve our organizational the outcomes for the organization. It helps us to improve with our stakeholders internally and externally. So it's really important to develop different mechanisms. I know I talked earlier about surveys. It's good to have a climate survey with all personnel in an organization to really assess, and those should be anonymous, and it allows you to assess where the organization stands. It's also important to have when you're having conversations that you're getting feedback about what's important for leaders within the organization, what has been working, what opportunities for improvement there are, what opportunities there are for further collaborations. So if you didn't see the episode on the questions that leaders should ask, I encourage you to go back and watch that episode. So this has been such a great time being able to engage with all of you. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope that these 12 different strategic moves successful senior leaders make in their first 90 days has been helpful for you. If you haven't hit the subscribe button and this has been beneficial to you, I encourage you to subscribe to both at Dr. April D. Dobson and at Purpose Today. I do encourage you to just share something that you have benefited from, something that you can institute from what you've heard. But it's certainly been a pleasure engaging with all of you. And so stay tuned for more episodes of Purpose Today. I'm very excited that on this Thursday, October the 30th, the special guest on Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson is none other than Morgan Carey. And I'm excited that Morgan Carey has returned as a guest. If you did not see Morgan Carey on on her prior interview on Purpose Today, I do encourage you to go back and watch that. But on Thursday, Morgan Carey and I are talking about building better workplaces. So Morgan Carey is a podcast host. She's the host of the People Power Project podcast, and she is a chief people development and principal of Morgan Carey Consulting Solutions. So thank you all who have engaged today. Thank you for tuning in. If you're you're in your career and you feel that you need to pivot, you're not quite sure of what to do first, you can send an email to admin@purposetoday.com. If you're in a career that aligns with your purpose, but you know it's time for you to scale and grow, and you want a coach to help you through that strategy, then send an email to admin@purposetoday.com. You can also direct message me, or you can type pivot in the comments or in the chat, and I would be happy to send you a link to schedule a one-on-one for us to discuss possibilities. So thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Purpose Today. I'm your host, Dr. April Dobson, and I invite you to tune in to our next episode. And I do thank you for tuning in to part 2 of 90-day executive moves for immediate impact in our Leading Purposefully series for organizational leaders. I invite you to tune in on Thursday for Leading Purposefully, Building Better Workplaces with our special guest, Morgan Carey. Thank you again for tuning in to Purpose Today. I encourage you to be purposeful today and every day. Until next time, I will see you on another episode of Purpose Today with Dr. April Dobson. Thank you again for tuning in.